My name is Helen, and I'm a volunteer with the Spiritist Society of Melbourne. And today I'm going to be discussing the topic Green Branch. And I'm a student of the Spiritist philosophy, so what I'm going to share today is my understanding of the topic. And it might differ from other people who are studying the Spiritist philosophy because we are all in different levels of learning. So what is this theme about? We're going to be talking about infancy and the importance of infancy. So we'll start with a question today. Since the spirit of a child has lived before, why does it not show itself as it really is right from birth? What do you guys think? What's your opinion? Why is it? And today, our discussion is going to be based on this book called Changing Attitudes by the Spirit of Hamed and written by Francisco do Espírito Santo Neto. I'm also using the Spirit's book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. And the Spirit's book is a collection of the questions and answers that Kardec and his team asked to the higher spirits, and all the answers the higher spirits gave Kardec. And the Gospel, according to Spiritism, is the teachings brought by Jesus under the light of the Spiritist philosophy. So I'll state the question again. Since the spirit of a child has lived before, why does it not show itself as it really is right from birth? And we can find that question in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 7, and the item number is 4. They actually start with that question. So why is it? And they say, from birth, their ideas, the children, their ideas gradually regain impulse as the organs mature and develop. During the time in which their instincts are still dormant, they are more malleable, and for that reason, more open to impressions that can influence their character and help them to progress. So, as we see here, and we know by science, that the child's organs, while it's developing, the spirit still doesn't have complete control over the body. So it's harder for the ideas of the eternal spirit to manifest through that child with those immature organs. However, as the organs slowly mature and develop, then the ideas that come from the different lifetimes that the spirit has lived, they start to regain impulse and tendency. It shows us tendencies of character because we have the veil of forgiveness, of forgetfulness, that we don't remember what happened in the previous lives for our benefit. Although some spirits do have access to that, but the majority of us, we don't have that access immediately. And that's a great opportunity. That's what we're going to see today for the caregivers to actually contribute to that spirit's progress. So there's two aspects for answering that question, isn't it? Why? Why doesn't it show in full? First, because the organs are maturing and the spirit can't have complete control over the body. But there's also another aspect, which is the child needs special care. And in that little fragile body that is incredibly cute, it inspires care from the caregivers. So when you look at the babies, and I put these 3 beautiful babies, it inspires people to feel tenderness towards that being. And it might be that they were in past lives very difficult people, but we can't see that when we look at a child, because they seem so tender and nice and cute and lovely. And that inspires people to actually develop that care that's much needed in the when we are a child. If we look at the Spirit's book in question 383, Kardec asks the higher spirits, what is the usefulness of a spirit having to go through infancy? Similar to what we asked before. Like, what's the usefulness? And the spirits reiterate what we saw in the gospel according to Spiritism, that a spirit incarnates in order to perfect itself. And that we know, right? That's one of the objectives of incarnation, is for the spirit to perfect itself. And during childhood, it is more accessible to impressions that it receives, like we saw in the previous slides in chapter 7 in the gospel, and that it may assist in its progress. So this is an important thing, that the persons in charge of its education should contribute towards this goal. So whoever is the caregiver to the child, and it might be the mother, the father, the grandmother, or whoever is in charge, has to pay attention to that, because we have the power to influence, and we're going to see next, that child's life. If we continue in the Spirit's book, Kardec asks the spirits, doesn't the spirits of the parents exert an influence on their children after birth? And what do you think the spirits responded? A very great influence. Because as we have already said, spirits should aid in one another's progress. As it is, the spirits of the parents have the mission of developing their child through education. And that's the response to question 2008. 2200, sorry. 208. So not only the parents have very, very great influence, it actually the parents have a mission of educating that child. That is one of the highest missions that a parent has. The first mission that we all have is our own education and our own development. But when we have a child under our care, that is also a very important mission that we have, which is to help that spirit that came into our lives to develop and become a good human being, and that they can progress as well. But is that what really happens? What do you guys think? I think it is happening more and more. In the past, we were quite, we had no awareness around that, and children weren't even seen as some a being like that was important. Obviously, it was going to develop in a human being according to the ideas of the past. And children, really, people did not care for children. They could not care. And there was no idea around psychology of education, but we have progressed in that area. And now we know how important it is, and how great the influence is that a parent or a caregiver has in the life of the child. And that's why we have to be extremely aware when we are around the children. So great part of our perception and emotional reactions are the result of the influence we received from adults around us. So nowadays, psychology knows that up until around the age of 7, which is aligned with what the Spiritist philosophy teaches us, and I'll come back to in a second, but psychology knows that our ego is being formed in our the first part of our infancy. And the ego is a protection mechanism that we have, and it protects us. It's a filter. However, if we don't have that, everything that comes in our direction when we're very young, we believe that that's true. We don't have criteria to judge what's coming our way. So whatever it is that happens in our infancy, it will influence in the way we perceive things and how we react emotionally as a teenager, as an adult, during our adult life. And it might be that many of those reactions, if we don't look into that, it's just the way we learned from the adults that were around us when we were in our infancy. And what else? Hamed says that the environment that the child is in may improve and develop or deteriorate and inhibit the psycho-spiritual organization of the child's personality. So depending on the amount of love and care and that they have, or how, if they feel loved and cared for, that will influence greatly in the spirit, like in the spiritual development, the psycho-spiritual development, as they say. And depending on the level of development of the spirit that's incarnating in that family, because if it's already a well-developed spirit that is born into a very unstable household, the spirit, because it already has achieved that development, it might go through life well, suffering obviously the consequences of the environment around them, but it won't affect that much their psychology and their spiritual development, because they already attained spiritual development in previous lives. However, if the spirit is still not well developed spiritually, that will have a great influence on their psycho-spiritual organization or development. So if we look at these two pictures, one, we have what seems to be a loving home where the parents are trying their best to take care of the kids, and they have moments together that will nourish and help improve and develop that personality. Whereas in the second, where it seems like they're around people that are drinking and the children are left to their own devices, that might deteriorate or inhibit their development. And we know that through common sense, but also through psychology, we understand. And the spirits come, like Hamed, come to tell us, reinforce that idea. So Hamed continues in the book Changing Attitudes under the item Green Branch that from birth we are extremely sensitive to the environment we live in. And I'm going to stop there, because even within the womb, it is well known that the child already perceives the emotions that are going around them. A few years ago, I used to work with pregnant young women that were going through challenging situations that could have been violence or socioeconomic challenges. And one day there was this mom that came. She wanted the baby, but she did not believe that anything you said to the baby would listen, because it was still forming. The spirit was still, the body was still forming, and the spirit was connecting to that body. And she said that her husband at the time he wanted to speak to the baby, but she wouldn't let him. And the baby, it seemed not to be developing well. And when she came to one of the sessions, I remember we were telling her, look, it is important to let the child know that you love the child, and you're expecting the child, and you're looking forward to seeing them, and allow your husband to show affection. And she said, nah, I don't believe in these things. I said, well, just try it out. You don't have to believe us. You can just try it out. And this mom to be, she really did. She said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, you have to do it wholeheartedly. And she did. And she disappeared for a couple of weeks. Our sessions were every week. It was a group session. And after a couple of weeks, she showed up, and you could see how much her tummy was showing. And the doctor said that it seemed like the baby was developing well. And she came to realize that it seemed like, in her opinion, that the baby could perceive what was happening in the environment around. And the Spiritist philosophy says that since the moment of conception, we know what's happening around us. So that's why Hamed says that from birth, even before birth, we know as well, we are extremely sensitive to the environment we live in. And he completes saying that that's why adults must ponder on the attitudes they have towards children, as it will have significant importance in the child's future development. And if we look at this picture of the little girl copying her mom or her caregiver, and that is exactly what happens. I'm speaking from Melbourne in Australia, and there was a campaign on TV regarding driving and how to teach your children to be responsible drivers. And they really focused on that, because they said, whatever it is, and it was like puppets. So the parent that was driving, it was like he had strings, and it was attached to the child in the back seat. So whatever it is that the parent did in the front seat, the child was seeing that, and that was being programmed, let's say, use that word, into that young child's psychology. So if the parent was always nervous and screaming at people in traffic, he was programming the child. And that's valid not only for situations such as traffic, but things that we do, that our actions, they speak louder than our words. We have that saying, don't we? Hamed also says that children are similar to fragile clay or a green branch, ready to be shaped and guided by our parents, that have a mission of developing our potential as one of their main tasks. And we kind of touched base on that, didn't we? That we are similar to a green branch. They say green branch because the green branch is very flexible. And the clay, as we can see in this picture, can easily be molded into something beautiful. So that's what Hamed says, that as children, we are similar to fragile clay or a green branch. and that the parents, as we mentioned before, from the spirits book, that the spirits tell Kardec, the higher spirits, that the parents have the mission of developing our potentials. And that is one of their main tasks, the parents' main task. Beautiful sculpture, isn't it? And this is very important. As a spiritist or a spiritualist, it's important to understand that each child is a universe. Each of us is unique, and we're unique along all our spiritual journey. And it's not different when we're in our child form. So we have to respect children in all their differences. And as parents, we have to learn to look at them and see them in all their potentialities and understand that they're not a blank page that's just born and then they're going to develop or write their own story. As spiritists, we know that they're not a blank page in this life because they have lived many different lives before, isn't it? So they have a luggage that that comes even when they are babies. And it's so funny because you really can notice that. And I am a mom of two. And I remember that my kids, from while I was pregnant, I could notice the difference between the two spirits that came. And really, if I look back now, they're very, very similar to what they are today, in the sense that my first child was extremely energetic. And you could feel that. I could feel that during my pregnancy, energetic. And my second child was calm, and the movements were really calm. And it happens that the two of them grew into adults, amazing adults, each one with different characteristics, but one very energetic and active, and the other calm, active, but in a calmer, nice, like smoother way. So we have to, as parents, learn to identify and respect that in our child. There's another very, very important point. And sometimes it happens that the parents, they try to solve their problems, the problems that they had themselves during their infancy, in their children. And what do I mean by that? They try to, through the mechanism of projection, they want to realize what they couldn't, or accomplish what they couldn't through their children. And sometimes they get frustrated if the children doesn't behave the way they expect them, or doesn't achieve what they want the child to achieve. I don't know if you have seen a situation like this, where a parent, a caregiver, wants the child to play a certain sport and get really angry if they don't win. And when they win, they feel like as if they were winning as well. So it is very important for us, that are parents and caregivers, to understand our unmet needs. And by unmet needs, that's what I mean. That during our childhood, although our parents were doing the best that they could with what they had at the moment, they did not meet all our needs. So we had part of our needs unmet. And because of that, if we don't address that as adults, we will project that probably, or that will influence the way we educate the children that we have, or it might be through a child relative, or in case of educators as well. So if we don't solve our childhood issues and our unmet needs, we are not completely able to meet our children's needs as well. And that's when we try to put everyone in the same kind of educational process where each person is unique, and we have to understand that they have different needs, and we have to identify that and assist them to become what they truly want, like what they love and what they truly, truly want in their lives. And this, I think, is one of the most important things that I want to leave you with today. And this is what Hamed says. Never forgetting that the children are not ours, but eternal souls, living a temporary experience in our home setting. And these spirits are on their way to enlightenment. So something that we can never forget, that before being our child, they're not our child, isn't it? Because before being our child, they are an eternal soul, an eternal being. And this being is on their way to enlightenment. And we can either help them through doing our best, and we're going to make mistakes anyway, but if we do our best, we can help them to progress. But if we don't create a loving environment and an understanding of their uniqueness, we might inhibit their development. And that might take longer for them to achieve their goals. They're going to have to work that out as an adult. So let's never forget that the children around us, they are eternal beings. And if we are in their lives, especially if we're in their lives as their parents or caregivers, it means that we have the responsibility, and as Hamed said in the Higher Spirits told Kardec, the mission of educating and assisting in these spirits' progress. So I hope you all got some value from what I brought today. And thank you very much. And I hope to see you next time.